Very pleased to be joined this morning by Coach Chris Caputo in his second season as the head assistant men's basketball coach at the University of Miami. Before that, spent time at George Mason University, especially being a part of their 2006 Final Four run. Coach Caputo, we're very happy you're with us here on the Prowl this morning.
Hey guys, thanks for having me, and I'm glad you still called even after we lost Wake on Saturday.
We were going to try and not talk about it, but obviously it's one of the bigger stories in college basketball. I've actually been to the Wake Forest Arena. I watched them upset NC State in person. Just talk a little about how tough it is to play on the road in college basketball, especially in a power conference like the ACC.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, give Wake a lot of credit. They played a terrific game, and when you think about how they've performed at home in our league, you're talking about, a team that obviously beat NC State, who we know is very, very talented and was in the top 25, I think, at that point. Virginia, who's had a great year. Florida State, who obviously is a team that is traditionally in the last 5-6 years been at the top of our league. I want to say it was a 5-point game with Duke. And, a Georgia Tech game that could have gone either way. I think it was 2 points. Obviously, it's a great atmosphere. Always has been there. There are 12,000 people in the stands for us on Saturday. Really, they deserve some credit. We were not sharp. But I think particularly whatever league you're playing in, no matter if it's the lowest rated league or the highest rated league, going on the road is not an easy task, and particularly when you can be, you're the hunted and you get everybody's best shot.
It's suffice to say that Miami's been one of the surprise teams on a lot of people's radar this season. You guys have had a phenomenal year, and I know that you're certainly not ready to be done with it yet, but in the last 4 to 5 games since you guys played really well at Carolina back on February the 9th at home, I should say, you've struggled a little bit in terms of scoring. What can you pinpoint anything on that, or is it just kind of one of those ebbs and flows of the college basketball season?
Well, I think if you look at our schedule, we did beat Carolina pretty handily. At home on the 9th. And then if you kind of look at who we played, you go to Clemson, who again has been very, very good at home, and you go to Florida State, again, another team that's very good defensively. Sorry, my dogs are barking here, guys.
That's all right, no problem at all.
You go to Florida State, who also has been very, very good at home. And then you go to Virginia. The thing about those teams in particular, Clemson and Virginia, is the style of play and the amount of possessions in those games. Those are teams that are 300 plus in tempo. In other words, possessions per game. And so when you look at teams like that, it becomes very, very hard to score against them. A, because they're good defensively, but B, because there's no possessions in those games. You may shoot a decent percentage, but again, there's not going to be that game's not going to be in the 80s because there's not going to be enough possession. And so for us, we have been a little bit, I would say, disconnected offensively. But I think some of that maybe goes to those teams that we're playing, because I think in particular Virginia and Clemson, both very, very good defensive teams. And I also think that they've tried to limit some of the things we do. In Florida State's case, I thought that they tried to we only took eight threes in that game. They tried to take away some threes. So everybody's game plan a little bit different. But, again, I think, you get this deep into conference play, teams have kind of seen you before. They know, what they think they can try to do to try to take you out of your offensive game plan, and so credit those teams. And as I've told people, we'll take all these wins. We're not like the 97, 96 Bulls or anything. We're going to have some close games, and we've been fortunate enough to win some of them.
Coach, can you just talk about how this year in college basketball has been so wide open? I mean, like Austin said earlier, you guys started out as a team not on many people's radar, and now you've climbed nationally to as high as number 2 in the country. Can you just talk about how crazy this year in college basketball has been?
Well, I certainly think that, it's a year with a lot of parity. It's not a negative, but I think when you look at the really good teams, and I'll use Indiana as an example, and some of their best players, whether it's Victor Oladipo or Sheehy, or a guy like Trey Burke at Michigan, those guys, or even our own Shane Larkin or Reggie Johnson, those guys that were a little bit under the radar, a little bit under-recruited. And so I'm not sure that there's the flat-out star power, in college basketball right now, that you might have next year when you see, the Harrison twins or Jabari Parker or Andrew Wiggins or Julius Randle, some of the great high school players that everybody kind of knows about that. Last year, Anthony Davis, I would, you're not trying to be critical of college basketball, but I think some of the star power maybe isn't there as far as one-and-done NBA type guys. But what I do see is great parity, great players, great storylines, and because of that, it's made for just such an exciting season with the amount of number 1 teams that have gone down, or ourselves the other day, and I think it can make for just a really, really exciting NCAA tournament.
Hey, Coach, if you could talk for a minute, one of your bigger responsibilities at Miami this, since you've been there, is recruiting. What are some of the challenges or the unique aspects of trying to recruit to a quote unquote, some people, list Miami as a football school? And I mean, I know you had experience at George Mason trying to recruit to a smaller Division I team. Are there any similarities to trying to recruit to a football school for basketball?
Well, I think that, one of the main things for us that's a positive is we have some brand name association. When you say Miami, everybody kind of knows where that is. Everybody knows the weather's great. In the culture of kids that are in that, high school age, they see Miami a lot on television, whether it, has something to do with the heat or, hip hop culture and things like that. I mean, there's a lot of that that's visible, so that part of it for us, it's been nice when you have that name recognition. And, we try to embrace the football culture here. I think, at the end of the day, a lot of the parents, in particular, of the kids that we're recruiting, or the older brothers and things like that, I mean, they have great memories of the U football winning national championships and a lot of the great players in the NFL now. So I think that's stuff that we embrace. It's nothing that we try to shy away from. And, I think the other thing that we've tried to do is say, hey, look, there's a lot of schools across the country that can be football schools, that can be, basketball schools, that can be our baseball programs won 4 national championships, and they've got a number of guys in the Major League Baseball, so, from that perspective for us, we embrace that success and try to build on it. And I think the other thing is Miami's success. When Miami succeeds, it's national news. It's not because I think it's a name brand. I think it's a place that a lot of people have connections to because of whether they have homes in Florida or a lot of the major news outlets in the Northeast. People have connections to South Florida. So from that perspective, I think you've seen from our success, this season that we've been a national story, not a regional story,
And Coach, you were just talking about how the one and done is not, I guess, prevalent right now in college basketball. You're a team the Miami Hurricanes, a number, I mean, if not all of your key players, with the exception of Shane Larkin, are juniors and seniors. Talk about how you guys have really, I guess, embraced the role of being a team that doesn't have the one-and-done type players, but you've got 5 and 6 guys that are seniors that are, giving to your program and allowing you guys to be as highly ranked as you are.
So we have, I think, obviously we have a veteran team, and when you're a little bit older, I think that can be very good. When you're, you have a group of guys that have kind of been through some of the adversities that all of that, the part of it, whether it's understanding, what it takes to win the road, having got through, some tough road games, there's maybe no disappointment of coming, really close to getting to the end of the tournament last season. So I think like in anything in life, you really have to, you have to fail it before you can succeed. You have to have gone through some things and some ups and downs. And I think, like anything, I think all of us would say when you're 18, you're not as knowledgeable and prepared to succeed in whatever it is you're doing as you might be when you're 22, and so we're lucky enough to have a strong group of guys, and, it's not really by design. It's guys redshirting, a guy like Julian Gamble, who got a 6th year, a guy like Kenny Kaji, who had transferred from Florida, a guy like Trey McKinney-Jones, who transferred from UMKC. So, it's certainly not something that, you try to necessarily put in place this many seniors on one team. But on the same token, obviously, we've been very, very happy to have those guys, because I think it's obviously showed in some of our close wins.
Coach, obviously this year you're at Miami and you're one of the top teams in the country, but 6 years ago or 7 years ago now, you were an assistant coach on the George Mason team under Coach Jim Larinaga, and you worked with our head coach here at High Point University, Scott Cherry. Just talk about that run that you guys made, and just talk about how that changed your perspective on college basketball and coaching.
Sure. Well, first let me say Scott Cherry is, one of the really great people in our business. I worked with him for, I believe, 4 years, and he was just a great guy to come to work with every single day. He's a guy who, in my opinion, is one of the absolute best X and O guys that I've ever been around, and have an unbelievable feel and understanding for the game. He was a good player in North Carolina. It's funny. I mean, he practiced a lot, with our team. When we would try to be the opponent. A lot of times he would be playing as the other opponent's point guard, And so I just thought he had a tremendous feel for the game, a terrific rapport with the players. He's one of those guys that the players would often come into his office and sit down and spend time with them. And I thought, his wife Courtney and his son Brody, they're just wonderful people. And High Point is, beyond lucky to have him there. He'll do things the right way, and I know you guys are having a great season, particularly in the league. So I'm really happy for his success. But we, obviously working together on that team with the Final Four. It's an incredible experience, especially when you think about the way in which we did it. And I'll never forget a good story. We beat North Carolina to go to the Sweet 16, and Scott, I think, used to do the post-game radio after the games. And so as we beat Carolina, everybody's in the locker room, and when Scott came back from doing the radio and goes in the locker room, the players kind of said, hey, let's keep it silent here for a minute. And so they were silent when he walked in, and he kind of got in the middle of the room and just belted out about the largest, I guess you'd call it a yelp, he was, fans are kind of like, I wonder if he's pissed off that we beat Carolina, So, it was really, really a great experience, and I think when you go through those things, you really you have a kinship with those people for the rest of your life, whether it's the players or the coaching staff. So it's been very, very fortunate for me to be a part of that.
What does it take, Coach, at a obviously a smaller level Division I school? George Mason was in the CAA, High Point's in the Big South. What does it take for a team, either over a couple years or in one single year, to make that kind of run in the NCAA tournament? Obviously, it starts most of the time with winning your conference tournament. And I guess kind of what are the difficulties with that, and what does it take to get to that high of a level in the NCAA tournament?
Well, it's funny. I mean, obviously, when we did it, no one had done it in 20 years. And really, I guess no one had done it since the NCAA tournament expanded to 65 or 64. And, and then it was almost like, I forgot the guy's name, Roger something, the guy who broke the mile record, and then all of a sudden everybody broke it after that, It was almost like, then all of a sudden VCU and Butler were able to do it, Butler able to do it again. I think you have to have a veteran team. Juniors and seniors are important, again, because I think sometimes your 22, 23-year-old guys are going to be able to compete a little bit better with some of the, 18, 19-year-old blue-chip players that are on some of the BCS conference teams these days, I think that, you have to have balance, be able to score inside out, and then you have to defend. And I think if you look at all those teams that made the Final Four from the non-BCS conferences, they all, were good defensively. Certainly BCU a little bit different in the way they defended than Butler and George Mason, but very, very good, had a defensive identity, and then I think offensively had balanced scoring, so you weren't maybe just rely. I don't think one player, other than Larry Bird, maybe could get you to the Final Four,
Well, Coach Caputo, we just want to thank you very much for coming on the program today, and we wish you the best of luck with your team the rest of the season, and we hope to see you make a deep run come March.
No, I appreciate it, guys, and I'll be looking for High Point to have a great finish to the season and be in the NCAA tournament, and I hope everybody there appreciates what they have in Scott Cherry, because he's a great guy, he's a great coach, and has a wonderful family.
Coach Caputo, again, we thank you, sir. And folks, come back with us. We'll be on here for another hour here on the Prowl with Kevin Ace on HPR The Sound.